I haven't felt as comfortable as I did before that experience, just walking around State College in any neighborhood at night.
That is a mystery to us. We don't know who that figure is outside of our house at night, walking through the yard.
But, it's not a place you want to be there alone at night. It's not a place you want to be there alone at night.
My name's Ellie D'Amico. I'm in my third year at Penn State studying visual arts, and my hometown is State College. It's like very shady and like earthy and kind of like, feels like it's a part of the mountain. It is on the base of the mountain though. Really like quaint historic district.
My name is Jane Herbert. I've lived in Lamont for 9 years and work at the Mount Nittany Winery. Lamont is a wonderful village. It's rural and it's close to urban, but you can be in the country in half a second just down that road.
Neighborhoods and houses are all pretty close together, it seems, but the higher you go up the mountain or further away from the center of town, the more sparse it is. Lots of just abandoned houses, too, on the outskirts of town. And then you just wonder why they've been abandoned and just left like that.
Well, my name is Jeffrey R. Frazier. I grew up in a little town of Center Hall, about 13 miles east of State College. And I had a kind of a checkered career. I started out with physical chemistry and math, graduated from Penn State. My series of books called Pennsylvania Fireside Tales. One of the favorite pastimes was storytelling, whether it be around the potbelly stoves at country stores, around the fireplaces and old log cabins. This is what I envisioned when I thought of my title for my series of books. And what appealed to me about the legends and folk tales was the fact that a lot of people just dismissed them as nothing but tall tales, nothing but products from the fertile imaginations of gifted storytellers. And to me, that was intriguing. I thought to myself, well, if I set myself up like an investigative reporter of sorts, put these stories in a historical context, explore the history behind them, can I find out if there's any kernels of truth buried in these stories? They have a basis in fact at all.
I think it piques the imagination if they're fiction, and it helps us learn if they're nonfiction. And I was a reading teacher, so.
Scholars in this field have called legends and folktales waifs of time.
When our kids come and our grandkids come, we always have, sit around the table or out in the den or whatever, and we talk about things that, were, and they ask us questions.
Because what happens is they get passed down over the currents of time, oblivious to time itself. Every once in a while they'll settle down somewhere, take on all the local color, all the local names. Pretty soon it looks just like that's where they originate.
It was late at night, probably after midnight at some point, but close to then. And we were walking around Lamont in the neighborhoods, and in the shadows we just saw this man standing there. And my friend and I didn't really know what to do. We were startled, so we just ran away from it. And then the next night, we went out on a walk on a different path in the same neighborhood, though. We're along a railroad the path was a railroad, actually, that we were just walking along. Oddly enough, we got spotlighted by some cops who were actually patrolling the area because they had received phone calls about a man staring into the windows of certain houses and trying to lure people outside. I was really shocked. It was almost kind of numbing in a way, because you don't really hear about that kind of thing happening around here very much.
The Black Ghost of Scotia is pretty daunting in some ways, because that story started back in 1910. Andrew Carnegie came here and found what he called his Great Mountain of Ore, and started his iron ore manufacturing over there in Scotia Barrens. And one of the employees that had claimed to have worked for her husband, Mrs. John Bottas was his widow, was a man named Bert DeLige. And one night he ended up in one of the local watering holes over there in Scotia and drunk himself into a towering rage, and he kept raving about the wages of Mrs. John Bottas owed him. It turns out that he had found out that she had gone over to visit her sister over in the Barrens. In fact, she passed a cornfield, and in that cornfield, Bert DeLige was waiting for her. And he jumped out, dragged her in the cornfield, raped her, and let her go, but when he was running away, she hollered after him that she knew who he was and he'd pay for it. This enraged him even more, and he was carrying a straight razor. He ran back and knocked her down, slit her throat, and killed her and dragged her back into the cornfield. It was a very unusual night. He said he never saw the night so clear. He said the stars were just so bright. You could see every star in the sky was just that bright. So he remembered that part of it. But anyway, they were horrified. People in the area were horrified about this murder. And found the bloody straight razor under his porch, blood on his clothes. Compared the soles of his shoes with the footprints in the cornfield. Perfect match. 10th of May of 1911, I think it was 12, he was hanged, publicly hanged, in the Bellefonte jail area. That was the last public hanging in the county. Would have been forgotten. People were so disgusted with what he had done that they buried him over there in a little cemetery, which is over there in the Barrens. He didn't erect a headstone over his grave. They were so disgusted with what he had done, you know. They just put a flat stone over his grave.
That is a mystery to us. We don't know who that figure is outside of our house at night, walking through the yard in a white, looked like a rabbit suit without the head.
How does it make you feel that somebody was walking around your backyard?
Well, since it wasn't you, I'm kind of concerned who would do that in the middle of the night. But yeah, well, the trail cam isn't working right now, so we don't have evidence. We know we have deer and we've had bears and opossum and other critters, but two-legged critters, I don't know.
There are those some years later that claimed that they could see this black apparition flitting around the cemetery. It was the Barrens there was a favorite parking place for teenagers to make out. It was a bright moonlit night, and she saw a black apparition standing on the edge of one of the ore banks near the car. It looked like he was holding a knife in one hand. She screamed, and the others looked and just blown away out of their mind. But there's other people who have encountered this malevolent spirit as well, and it's very intimidating. But you know, it's not a place you want to be there alone at night, I don't think.
I mean, I can't say for sure, obviously, what was going through his mind, but obviously, looking into the windows of people's houses at night, a small town in central Pennsylvania, I feel like you're pretty trapped inside your own head. It makes me feel uneasy and kind of worried for myself and a little bit wary, but also I'm curious.
I think that's just human nature to create things like that, stories like that. I think that there's some people who like to tell stories and create their own stories. And the more fantastic and phenomenal they sound, the more deeply ingrained they become in the culture, I think. The ghost stories, monster stories and stuff, urban legends, they're entertaining, but I think people like that sense of mystery too, you know, and kind of like the idea of maybe there's something scary out there that people can't explain. Makes it a mystery, and people like that. You see, what happens is these things get passed down over time. They become embellished, they become romanticized. You know, people add on to them, and some of the original verbiage is lost.
I want to look out for things that might be hiding in the dark that and people especially, more wary of people's motives.
One of the things that boggled my mind the most in collecting these stories back in 1970, especially when I went into more remote valleys and villages in the mountains, I could still find people who believed in witches. And when I say this in my lectures, people sometimes chuckle, and I said, well, wait a minute, I said, don't belittle these folks, because it just shows you how deeply ingrained those superstitions once were.
I just hope that whoever lives here embraces the nature that's been here for so long.
People often ask me in my lectures and stuff when I talk about ghosts, do you believe in ghosts? And I said, well, look, I said, you know, I was trained as a scientist to think logically, critically, and so forth. And that was my whole career. So I said, my conclusion, especially since the idea about people seeing ghosts has been around for thousands of years, my conclusion about it is this, that the phenomenon is real.
I think it's very easy to overlook that kind of thing in towns like this.
There's no question in my mind. There's something to it. I'm not prepared to say it's anything supernatural, but it's real. The phenomenon is there, whether it's just part of nature we don't understand yet, maybe an imprint on the fabric of space and time itself that surfaces once in a while, or maybe it's a mental projection from our brains, that comes out once in a while. Whatever it is, it's real. There's something to it. I read once, an old gentleman wrote a book about ghosts. He thought the ghosts would always be around. He said, because, he said, the ghosts right now, this was back in like the 50s or 60s, he said, the ghosts still promenade at night and laugh at our electricity. So I think that's a good way to think about it.